All right, so this is a compound calculator spreadsheet that I created. I made two different tabs for daily, weekly in one tab, and then monthly, yearly in the second tab. I'm going to go through the daily, weekly first, just so everyone can understand. Then I'll move over to the monthly, yearly. So essentially what I've done here is I created the first contribution and multiplied by 5%, which is where these numbers come from. So the daily return is these two multiplied by each other. This total compounding number is the initial contribution plus the daily return, right? So every day it's going to increase. Essentially, this cell is going to be C7 plus B8, right? And so on and so forth. So it goes all the way down. I did 90 days worth. And it's real simple. You can just edit these two fields for the daily columns, B and C columns. So if you want to do like 10% a day or 1% a day, whatever, and you want to adjust your daily contribution, and this is honestly not a daily contribution, it's your initial contribution. So actually I'm going to change that to initial contribution because that's technically what it is. So this basically means you're just putting in $100 and then every day you're compounding 5% on that $100. Obviously if you put more money in every day, that's going to make a big difference. I think this calculator, most people are going to just look to do a specific contribution and then start with that and move forward. Now, if you want to make an adjustment to say, well, day 7, I made more than 5%. I made 10%. So essentially, all you need to do is for day 7, you come up here to this cell where it says B4, and wait, let me back up. So for day 7, if you want to change that, like I said, to let's say optional daily of 15%. So that's what I created this for. So if you want to do 15% for day 7, all you would do is edit this field, the B4, and you would change that to E4, right? So when I change that to E4, watch the C column from C13 and down, you'll see everything change, right? So I think the easiest way to look is the total down here is 432. So if I change this to E4, it changes to 473, right? So, and it only changes for this particular day. So everything else will change concurrently with it. So if I go back here and readjust it back to B4, it's going to change everything concurrently, right? So, and that goes for any cell that you want to change. So for anything in column C, none of that needs to be adjusted. That will auto adjust if you make any changes to either of these 3 cells, right? So A4, B4, and then anything in the B column, if you make an adjustment to any of that, this C column will change itself, right? And that goes all the way down, right? So another thing, if let's say you want to do another 30 days, very simply, what I would do is just copy this to here, change this to 120 days, and then you can try to keep the same format of everything. So I would do like this, 91, and then I would copy and paste this, but I'm going to delete these values. And essentially, what you're going to do is equals sign. Click on the cell, plus, and I know that the cell up top is B4, right? So I'm gonna input. I'm sorry, this needs to be multiplied to B4, and you hit enter, and that's going to give you your return. And then same thing, right here. If you want, you're going to need to essentially hit equals, click on the cell, hit the plus sign, click on the cell, enter, and that's going to give you your compounded total, right? And I like to be uniform and make everything continue on, but that's exactly how you would add to this if that's what you wanted to do. And you can do that every day. So like if you're trying to track something that you're doing, and you can even subtract something. So let's say day 92 you didn't do so good. So let's get this. Okay, so let's say day 92 you're going to basically equal sign. Oops, what am I doing? Right here. Equal sign, click the cell, and you're going to multiply by a negative number, right? So in this case, because we don't have percent set up here on this cell like I do up here, you're going to need to use a decimal, right? So let's say you did a negative 5% for that day. So you would essentially do a negative 0.05, and that's going to give you that number, right? So then you would go back to this field and say, okay, equals this number plus this number, and that's going to give you what you essentially lost, right? So I'm going to remove these two rows for the spreadsheet, but that's just an example. If you're tracking something and you want to keep going past 120 days, you can do that. And same thing up and on any of these other cells, right? I mean, if you lose money, you can just simply get rid of the B4 and do a minus 0.05, which is a 5%, and it's easily adjustable. Just make sure that you don't get confused or get things mixed up, because then it's going to really throw everything off, right? I think it's pretty simple once you understand what you're doing, right? So moving on, let me go ahead and get rid of this. Okay, moving on, same concept with the weeklies, right? So I did the same thing. Weekly contribution was $100, right? So I did C4 times the weekly percent, which is I did 10% here, right? And obviously these numbers are very fluid. You can change them at will in each cell specifically, but this is more of a generalization. So basically here, again, multiplied those two numbers together, which gave me 10, and then I went here and added $100 to 10, which gave me this, right? And that's the only real difference versus the rest of the cells, right? The rest of the cells are going to be F7 times D4, right? You can see the formula here, F7 times D4. And then for the total, it's going to be F7 plus E9, right? And you can see that here. Right, so again, same concept. If you want to make adjustments to the percentages individually, you can do that, and it's going to concurrently adjust everything else. So this is a really fun tool you can play with. Just make sure you understand what you're trying to do, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I can certainly help with any of this, okay? So moving on to the monthly yearly, I initially created this for retirement accounts, and I did the $6,000 contribution because that's what a Roth retirement account or even an IRA will allow you to contribute every year, right? So with that being said, this is going to be the field that you edit for, and I have it broken down to do a compounding per month, or this is the annualized, right? So if I change this to 3, watch all the numbers here. They're going to adjust, right? So I'll go back to 2.5. And I can even change this, right? So if you're using like a regular brokerage account and it's not a retirement account, you can put any number in here you want, right? So actually that's only going to change this side. Unfortunately, I would have to make some adjustments to over here. I think honestly I could probably just adjust it right here. So let's go back to 6,000, and essentially, you know, this is I think what I did here was I had $6,000 in the account, and then the following year I added another 6,000, which was what put me at 12, right? So this number I think I can adjust to 25,000. Yes, that will do what I was mentioning here. So if you want to adjust these numbers, so basically I believe the way this works is this percentage number is going to affect all of this, and this percentage number for the annualized is going to affect everything on these columns, right? So if I do 100, watch down here, there we go. See, it changes down here. It doesn't necessarily change here because, you know, this is the first year, so it's not really going to make a change. I mean, obviously it will if you mess with this, right? So this number is tied to D4, right? So 100% if I change this number, it's going to adjust here. So I think if you want to make adjustments to the annualized side, you change this number. If you want to make adjustments to the annualized return, you change this cell. If you want to make adjustments to the monthly side, you can do 6,000, and that's going to make the change here. And if you want to make adjustments to the compounding interest piece, you're going to change that here. All right. Hopefully that's not too. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys and confuse everything there, because that, you know, it can get a little confusing if you're not careful. But I made this go down 30 years, right? So it goes all the way down to 30 years. Let me just scroll all the way down just to make sure I'm not telling lies. Yep, so 31 years. So it's really simple to adjust once you understand it, and you can, you know, the purpose of this video is for you to rewind it and test out what you're trying to do. And I will share this new spreadsheet with everybody. That way you can, if you mess it up, you can always re-download it from me and, you know, start over. But, you know, essentially, you know, again, this side, the annualized side, if I want to make changes, say down here, let's say I made 60% this year, it's going to affect all of this, right? So it's going to adjust all of that, and it won't affect anything above it. So the reason I did the annualized side is because I think it's more realistic to do the annualized. It's much harder to be consistent with monthly returns or even daily and weekly, right? I mean, that's going to be really tough. But it's easily trackable and adjustable to where you can make it specific to what you've made or lost. But essentially, you know, we can, this annualized side is probably the most realistic out of all the compounding calculators. Essentially, you know, like you come up with this number if you're tracking what you're doing specifically. So like, let's say you finish the year out and you made 3%, 5%, 7%, all those numbers, you can add them all up, and whatever that total number is, you're going to divide it by 12, and then you can put that ending number here. And that's going to be your average percentage of the year, right? So that's what we're looking for. All right, so again, this is my favorite one because I believe it's the most realistic, and it's a lot easier to attain 30% a year versus 2.5% a month. I mean, you know, if you're consistent and a robot and really good at trading and really good at compounding your money and not losing, or you know, making sure that you know, have stops in place and you can protect yourself, then yeah, it's definitely doable to get this 2.5% return every month, and even more so if you're really really good, you can certainly compound daily and weekly percentages, right? So hopefully this helps everybody. And again, as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. And if you guys have any suggestions, and you wanted to see something different, or me make additional revisions or adjustments, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to look into it and see if there's a way to make that happen. I'm sure there is. So that's it. I hope everybody has a good day, and thanks for using my spreadsheet.